Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today we're tackling a pretty big name in physics, Subrahmanyan Chandrasekhar, a guy who literally changed how we see the stars.
Yeah, he's one of those figures, where their impact is just so huge, it's hard to even put into words. Chandrasekhar didn't just study stars, he, cracked their code.
Right, he figured out their whole life cycle, their evolution, and I think in doing so, he really opened up the door to things like black holes and all these other crazy cosmic phenomena.
Exactly.
And we're lucky enough to have some excerpts from his biography to guide us, so we're going way beyond the usual textbook stuff, the basic summaries.
Right, yeah.
And what I find fascinating is that even before he was on the world stage, Chandrasekhar was already publishing in all these top journals.
Mm-hmm.
He just had this incredible grasp of really advanced physics at a super young age.
It's like he was, born with a star chart, Like, growing up in Lahore in a family that really valued intellectual pursuits, you can see how his early environment really played a role. His mother was a translator, bringing all these challenging works to a wider audience. And then his uncle was C.V. Raman, a Nobel laureate in physics.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that connection.
Yeah, so the bar was set pretty high.
Yeah, talk about some family pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of unpack this idea of his early brilliance a little bit more. So he goes to Presidency College in Madras, and it's not just that he's a good student, it's that he's already contributing original research, which is mind-boggling, especially for those of us who, struggle to pass basic physics.
I know. It's amazing. And what's remarkable is that he was working on things like Compton scattering, new statistical models.
Not exactly light reading.
No, not at all. And this early work, that's what earned him a scholarship to Cambridge, which at the time was the place to be for physics.
So he arrives at Cambridge, and now he's surrounded by all these giants in the field. Mm-hmm. What was his focus at this time? What was he really diving into?
He just goes headfirst into this world of white dwarfs.
White dwarfs?
Yeah, so these are stars that are incredibly dense, right? Imagine cramming the mass of the sun into something the size of the Earth.
Ooh, I'm already getting claustrophobic. So what was it about these white dwarfs that he was contributing to? What was his unique angle?
So he developed this groundbreaking theoretical model, and he incorporated Einstein's theory of relativity to explain how these white dwarfs are actually structured.
Wow.
And this led him to a really startling discovery, what we now know as the Chandrasekhar limit.
Uh-huh.
And it basically says that white dwarfs, they can only grow to be about 1.44 times the mass of our sun.
Yeah.
If they exceed that limit, they collapse.
So stars have a size limit, just like, I don't know, a balloon can only hold so much air before it pops.
Exactly.
That's wild.
Yeah, and this realization, it had huge implications, right?
I bet.
It wasn't just a theoretical curiosity. It completely changed how we understand a star's evolution and even hinted at, the existence of black holes.
Right. These regions where gravity is so strong that nothing can escape, not even light. So here's where it gets really interesting. Not everyone was on board with his findings, right?
Right, the Eddington controversy. So Arthur Eddington, one of the leading astrophysicists of the time, he publicly disputed Chandrasekhar's work. He rejected this whole idea of a limit on the mass of a white dwarf. And you can imagine the pressure on this young, brilliant mind having his work challenged by someone like Eddington.
That must have been incredibly daunting, especially for someone, relatively early in their career.
Oh, absolutely.
How did he handle that?
Well, Chandrasekhar, even with all this intense scrutiny and debate, he stood by his calculations. He was confident in his model, in the elegance of the math. And this is where his character really shines through. He respected Eddington, but he was unwilling to back down from what he believed to be scientifically sound.
That's a powerful lesson right there. Standing up for your convictions, even when you're facing giants in the field. So what was the long-term impact of this whole controversy?
Well, it certainly sparked years of debate, right? And it really influenced the course of astrophysics. But eventually, as with a lot of scientific breakthroughs that initially faced resistance, Chandrasekhar's work gained, widespread acceptance. And remember, this was just the beginning of his incredible career.
Right, because this Chandrasekhar limit was just one piece of the puzzle. It's like he was on a mission to decode the entire universe. He went on to make contributions to so many different areas.
He had this systematic approach.
Oh, yeah.
He would immerse himself in a field for a decade, publish tons of papers, even write a definitive book summarizing all the key concepts. And then boom, move on to conquer another area.
Wow.
From stellar dynamics to black holes to the way light travels through space. I mean, he really left no stone unturned.
And he wasn't just a solitary genius, right? He was also incredibly dedicated to mentoring the next generation of scientists.
His commitment to students was legendary. Think about this. The average age of his collaborators remained around 30 for 50 years.
Yeah.
What does that tell you about his commitment to fostering young minds?
That is remarkable. It's a testament to his legacy, not just as a groundbreaking researcher, but as a teacher, as a mentor. He understood that the future of science depended on nurturing those who would come after him.
Yeah, absolutely. And his influence, it went beyond academia, too. He was also the editor of the prestigious Astrophysical Journal for almost 20 years.
So he was not only making his own discoveries, but he was also helping to elevate the work of other scientists.
Exactly. And he didn't shy away from promoting research that was controversial or out of the mainstream. He really championed scientific progress, even when it meant going against the grain.
You mentioned an example earlier.
Oh, yes. So in the late 1950s, this young scientist named Eugene Parker, he submitted a paper proposing this idea of solar wind. This constant stream of charged particles coming from the sun. It was a revolutionary idea, but it was initially met with a lot of skepticism.
So what did Chandrasekhar do?
Well, his journey to America it's actually fascinating, full of, unexpected twists and turns. And ultimately, it reveals a lot about the changing landscape of science in the 20th century.
So we left off with Chandrasekhar, kind of making waves at Cambridge, but his path to the U.S. wasn't like a straight shot.
No, not at all. It's actually his journey took him back and forth across the Atlantic a couple of times before he ended up settling in Chicago. It all started with this invitation from Harlow Shapley, the director of the Harvard Observatory. Shapley had heard about Chandrasekhar's work, this groundbreaking stuff, and he wanted him to, come share his expertise with the folks at Harvard.
That's a pretty big deal, right? Harvard at the time was like the epicenter of astrophysics in the U.S.
Exactly. And Chandrasekhar, he made quite an impression during his time there. He even got an offer for a research fellowship, which is a pretty prestigious opportunity, especially for, a young scientist.
So why didn't he stay at Harvard? It seems like the perfect place for someone who's, at the forefront of astrophysical research.
Well, around the same time, he crossed paths with Gerard Kuiper.
Okay.
Who was a renowned Dutch astrophysicist, a leading expert on, you guessed it, white dwarfs.
Wow. So Chandrasekhar had a chance to connect with another giant in the field that he was revolutionizing. What a small world.
It really is. And Kuiper had recently joined the Yerkes Observatory in Wisconsin, which was run by the University of Chicago.
Okay.
And he was so impressed with Chandrasekhar that he recommended him to the director, Otto Struve, who was looking for talented astrophysicists to, join the faculty.
So Chandrasekhar's work was really starting to make a name for him. He caught the eye of another prominent figure in the field.
Absolutely. And Struve, recognizing Chandrasekhar's brilliance, offered him a position at Yerkes. But here's the twist. Chandrasekhar initially declined the offer.
Oh.
He wasn't quite ready to make the move to the U.S.
Okay.
So he returned to England.
I'm sensing a plot twist coming.
You're right on cue. So remember, this is the era of transatlantic voyages, right? Not quick plane trips. While Chandrasekhar was on his way back to England, he received a radiogram from, get this, Robert Maynard Hutchins, the president of the University of Chicago.
Wow. A radiogram from the university president himself. They must have really wanted him in Chicago.
They clearly recognized his talent, right? And they were determined to bring him to Chicago. Hutchins urged Chandrasekhar to reconsider their offer, and it worked. He decided to give the U.S. another shot.
So in December 1936, Chandrasekhar returned to the United States and began his tenure as an assistant professor of theoretical astrophysics at Yerkes Observatory, which was, at that time, a hub of astronomical research.
It was. It was the beginning of this long and incredibly fruitful relationship with the University of Chicago. He spent his entire career there, rising through the ranks, becoming a full professor in 1943.
At the remarkably young age of 33, too. That's a meteoric rise in academia. It speaks volumes about his talent and the impact he was already having on the field.
And his reputation just continued to grow. In 1946, even Princeton tried to lure him away, offering him a position with double the salary he was earning at Chicago.
Double the salary. That's a pretty tempting offer, especially for a young professor. Did he take it?
Well, Robert Maynard Hutchins, the University of Chicago president, who had been, so instrumental in bringing Chandrasekhar to Chicago in the first place, he wasn't about to let him go that easily. He matched Princeton's salary offer and persuaded him to stay.
That's a testament to how highly they valued him at the University of Chicago. They recognized that he was a, like, once-in-a-generation talent.
Absolutely. And Chandrasekhar's loyalty to the University of Chicago speaks to, I think, the the intellectually stimulating and supportive environment that he found there. It was a place where he could truly thrive. He went on to become the Morton D. Hall Distinguished Service Professor of Theoretical Astrophysics in 1952, and he even joined the Enrico Fermi Institute at the invitation of, the legendary Enrico Fermi himself.
So Chicago in the mid-20th century was like a magnet for brilliant minds in physics. It must have been an incredibly exciting time to be there.
It was a golden age for scientific discovery. But,
Yeah.
it wasn't all smooth sailing for Chandrasekhar. Remember
Mm.
the Eddington controversy we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
That had a lasting impact on him, and it really shaped how he approached his role as editor of the Astrophysical Journal.
Right. He took that position very seriously. It wasn't just about, publishing the latest research. It was about fostering this spirit of open inquiry and challenging the status quo.
Exactly. And he had this knack for spotting groundbreaking work, even when it came from, unconventional sources or went against the prevailing wisdom. He was willing to take risks and publish research that others might have just dismissed.
And this brings us back to Eugene Parker and the whole story of the solar wind.
Yes, Parker's theory of the solar wind was one of those instances where Chandrasekhar's willingness to champion, unconventional ideas had a profound impact on the course of science.
So we've got this young scientist, Eugene Parker. He's proposing this radical new idea about the sun. And Chandrasekhar, as editor, he kind of finds himself at a crossroads. What happened next?
Well, Parker's paper landed on his desk, and two prominent reviewers, they'd already rejected it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they just didn't buy this whole idea of a constant stream of particles flowing from the sun. It just challenged the prevailing view.
It was a big deal, yeah. But Chandrasekhar wasn't so quick to just dismiss it.
No, he really took a deep dive into Parker's work, scrutinized the math, the reasoning, all the evidence, and he couldn't find a single flaw. Chandrasekhar, he was a firm believer in letting the science speak for itself, even when it led to, some uncomfortable conclusions.
So even though this whole idea of solar wind was super controversial, he decided to publish Parker's paper.
He did. And it turned out to be one of the most important decisions of his editorial career. Parker's theory was eventually confirmed through observations, and it really revolutionized our understanding of the sun's influence on the entire solar system.
It's a testament to Chandrasekhar's, open-mindedness and his commitment to scientific progress. He didn't let personal biases or the prevailing dogma get in the way of what he believed to be sound science.
And it's a lesson that's still relevant today, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes the most important discoveries come from those who dare to challenge the status quo, to think outside the box.
Yeah. So we've covered a lot of ground today. We explored Chandrasekhar's early brilliance, his groundbreaking work on the structure and evolution of stars, his commitment to mentoring the next generation of scientists, and his role as this champion of unconventional ideas. How would you sum up his legacy? What's the lasting impact of his work?
Well, Chandrasekhar's contributions to astrophysics are immense. He literally changed the way we see the universe. He showed us that stars have a finite lifespan, that they go through these incredible transformations, and that ultimately their fate is governed by these fundamental laws of physics.
And his work paved the way for the study of some of the most exotic objects in the cosmos, things like black holes and neutron stars.
Exactly. His theoretical work on white dwarfs and that Chandrasekhar limit, it really laid the foundation for our understanding of these incredibly dense objects. It's hard to imagine where the field of astrophysics would be without his contributions.
And then, of course, there's the Chandra X-ray Observatory, this incredible space telescope that's been orbiting Earth for over 2 decades now, capturing these stunning images of the universe in X-ray light.
It's a fitting tribute to a man who really dedicated his life to unraveling the mysteries of the cosmos. The Chandra Observatory has revolutionized our understanding of black holes, supernovae, and countless other high-energy phenomena out there in the universe.
So what can we learn from the life and work of Subrahmanyan Chandrasekhar? What are the key takeaways that our listeners should keep in mind?
I think his story highlights the importance of intellectual curiosity, perseverance, and a willingness to challenge conventional wisdom. Chandrasekhar, he was never afraid to ask those tough questions, to delve into the complexities of nature, and to pursue his research with rigor and integrity, even when it meant, facing opposition.
He was a true pioneer, a visionary who helped us all see the universe in a whole new light, and his legacy continues to inspire, scientists and stargazers alike.
And who knows what other cosmic mysteries are out there waiting for us.
Right.
Perhaps inspired by Chandrasekhar's legacy, future generations of scientists will make discoveries that will once again reshape our understanding of this vast and awe-inspiring universe that we call home.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive for today.
Yeah, time really flies when you're exploring the cosmos.
It certainly does. A huge thank you to our expert for joining us today and sharing your incredible insights.
It was my pleasure. Always loved talking about the giants of astrophysics.
And to all our listeners out there, keep looking up, keep asking questions, and never stop exploring the wonders of the universe. We'll catch you on our next deep dive.